This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
It's Monday, my friends, and time to get to work. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're a Kansas City Royals fan, congratulations. Your team is victorious in the World Series. University of Michigan tags up a win for the weekend as well in a very close game against Minnesota. In fact, they had to make a goal line stand on the last play of the game, and Michigan State, of course, was off. So much to talk about today that again, you look around and you say, where do you start? So much. I'd like to start with Fred Thompson, I guess. Fred Thompson, I thought, was a pretty credible candidate for president in 2008. And then his campaign really, it got a bit of a boost for a short period of time, but it didn't make it. But Fred Thompson has passed away. Former senator from Tennessee, star of Law and Order for years in movies like The Hunt for Red October and Days of Thunder he was in with Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall. Apparently he had a lymphoma issue, had a cancer issue that came back and, claimed his life, apparently. He was 73 years old. We'll hear some comments from Fred Thompson and some of the folks around him here a little bit later on the program. Also today, we'll hear from Nolan Finley saying that things could get downright nasty if Michigan lawmakers don't come to terms with this fixing of the roads. Because if you didn't know, once again, a plan to fix Michigan roads and put us back on track to correct long festering problems has careened into the ditch. It's almost predictable, isn't it? The latest plan, including a 3.3 cent per gallon gas tax increase, a 40% spike for registration fees, plus about $600 million from the state general fund, apparently is going nowhere. Senate Republican leader Arlen Meekoff and Republican House Speaker Kevin Conner thought everyone was finally ready to put this ongoing nightmare behind us. The two made a deal. It seemed it was going to make it to Governor Snyder's desk, but then the sniping began again. Then all the sniping began again. The obvious concern was the rejection by voters of better than 4-1 by the folks that said no to Proposal 1. They rejected the idea of increasing tax and fees by a very wide margin, a historic margin. In fact, the problems began percolating to the top not long after this plan was put forward. Complaints that most of the funding would not even begin until 2018. Much of the money wouldn't be there until 2021. Republicans began going public saying they would not be on board with the convoluted ideas. At one point, the GOP thought they could move the plan through with the help, or without the help, that is, of Democrats, but that quickly faded, of course. And it became obvious it would have to be a bipartisan plan. The cue went out to the Democrats, who are more interested in handicapping the Republicans than fixing the problem themselves, to create a little more controversy and chaos, if possible. If you needed evidence of this ongoing mindset, just review the particulars around the midnight battle to remove Todd Corser and Cindy Gamrett. Speaking of roads, I'm not voting for this, proclaimed Senator Curtis Hertel, a Democrat from Lansing. Let's be honest, the Democrats would be perfectly fine with letting the roads turn to dust by November of 2018, when they would like to ride to the rescue and reclaim the governor's mansion. Make no mistake, if that happens, and who could say at this point it wouldn't? The Dem plan would also reach deeply into your pockets for funding. It might go deeper than the one that's on tap right now. At any rate, we'll have to watch at this point to see what Arlen Meekoff and Kevin Cotter do to see if they can get this plan rescued from the ditch. But right now, I wouldn't count on it. Let's go to the phones. Brian in Southern Michigan, waiting patiently. Brian, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Steve. I hope you had a great weekend.
Yes, sir.
The reason I'm on is I was reading on the Drudge Report last night about Putin and the climate change, and basically he's like, it's not man-made, if anything, and he's basically treating it how we used to treat it, with logic and common sense.
Well, that's the way I still treat it.
Huh?
No, that's the way I still treat it. And no, I did not see the article, but, here's the thing.
Yeah, you ought to check it out.
All right, well, I appreciate that, Brian. Thanks for checking in. What else are we going to do? Right now, we're being run down this rail, and we'll talk about that because here in Michigan, coal is on ice. Make no mistake. The death of coal is moving forward with great expediency. There will be no coal, and that's the way it's going to be. I wanted to go back and let's see here if we got time to get in one comment from Fred Thompson. If you've got it, Alex, I want the cut number. I think it's cut number 3 there when he wins the South Carolina debate and provided Mike Huckabee a Reagan coalition smackdown, if you will. This is when he was running for president, Fred Thompson, back in 2008.
I answer that,
Senator Thompson,
on the
30-second rebuttal,
Reagan.
sir.
Well, it's not a response. I mean, you asked a minute or minute and a half question of these gentlemen on the Reagan Revolution. Could I address that?
Sure.
It's an important issue because I think it demonstrates what we're about here today. I think that Governor Huckabee's campaign manager said it accurately in terms of what they believe. They believe that it is over. This is a battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party and its future. On the one hand, you have the Reagan Revolution. You have the Reagan coalition of limited government and strong national security. On the other hand, you have the direction that Governor Huckabee would take us in. He would be a Christian leader, but he would also bring about liberal economic policies, liberal foreign policies. He believes we have an arrogant foreign policy and the tradition of blame America first. He believes that Guantanamo should be closed down and those enemy combatants brought here to the United States to find their way into the court system eventually. He believes in taxpayer-funded programs for illegals, as he did in Arkansas. He has the endorsement of the National Education Association. And the NEA said it was because of his opposition to vouchers. He said he would sign a bill that banned smoking nationwide. So much for federalism, so much for states' rights, so much for individual rights. That's not the model of the Reagan coalition. That's the model of the Democratic Party.
Governor Huckabee, you got
And there you have it. There's Fred Thompson, outspoken, and he, like I said, he had some fire, had some flicker of hope there in 2008, but then it drifted away, and he didn't go too far after that. He dropped out not long after that, actually, and that is, the late Fred Thompson, passing away yesterday at the age of 73 from cancer. Again, he ran for president. He was the star of Law and Order for many years and many major motion pictures as well. Marco Rubio could be on the hot place on the fast track. We'll tell you why after the break. It's Monday here on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
You say you want a revolution. Well, we all want to.
It's 18 after the hour. You wonder why the Republicans are making such a fuss about this CNBC debate. All clamoring that, well, among other things, saying they won't do the debate with NBC going forward in Telemundo. The problem with that, strategically again, Ryan's Priebus, is that the signal you send to the Spanish-speaking people, the Hispanic vote that you need in part to win election, and the Spanish-speaking people, the vote that is getting larger year after year after year, you've basically sent a message that Republicans are snubbing them. Now, is NBC wrong? Of course they are. But the fact of the matter is, every one of those Republicans on the stage here last week won. They won because everybody could see how biased even the Democrats In the postmortem of that debate, we're saying how obviously biased the crew from NBC was that night. The moderators were so wildly biased, everybody saw it. So why would you leave NBC? Why would you leave an opportunity like that? It doesn't make any sense. All the Republicans won in that debate. And now, again, you're sending the signal to the Hispanic crowd, we're not going to go there. And then you get people like Jorge Ramos from Univision, that twit, who's going to run around and tell the world, well, those Republicans hate Hispanics, they hate Mexicans, which is not true at all. We respect the rule of law, real Americans do. We think things should be done by the book and not just willy-nilly. You know, it's like a child being told no, but please, 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 no. You can't just come into our country, you know, without documentation, without background checks, without some evaluation. Please, 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 please. And the children just keep begging to the point, fine. But see, then that doesn't teach anybody anything. And you create problems behaving that way. And you see what the Republicans don't have is this vision of the future. What do they have? They don't have this grasp of what people need. I mean, some people do. Donald Trump now out talking about the funding and the problems with the Veterans Administration, the corruptness of the Veterans Administration, another winning campaign issue for Donald Trump. He may be trailing Ben Carson, but I don't think that'll be long-lived. I think Ben Carson has great ideas, is a smart man, but I think he's, at the end of the day, he's just too calm and soft-spoken. You know, sometimes you got to get up there. And, you know, you can speak softly and carry a loud stick. Teddy Roosevelt did that while thumping on the stage, of course, and getting people's attention. But the Republicans need a vision. They need a path. They need a message that they can send to people. And Paul Ryan, the new Speaker of the House, former candidate for Vice President of the United States, made the loops on the Sunday programs, appearing all over the place. And he seems to echo that same sentiment. What are the party's shortcomings, he was asked. Here's what he said.
Is offer a vision. We have not shown, not only ourselves, but the nation, what is the horizon we're shooting for? What are the big ideas that we're going to champion? That's unifying. That's what we should rally around. So that, to me, means we should put aside the timid nature of not taking risks on policy and show people why we should be trusted to lead in this nation to get us to a better day.
And that I agree with. Let's get away from this timid nature that we've all been, you know, messing around with. The next question, by the way, let's take that next one, too. What would you do differently, Mr. Ryan? What will you do differently as Speaker of the House to lead the Republicans? Go.
I was not elected dictator of the House. I was elected Speaker of the House. And that means we do it in a bottom-up approach. We reach consensus. As Republicans, we have common principles. We need to take those common principles and apply them to the problems of the day through consensus to show the country a better way forward.
You know, we'll see, because here's the interesting thing. I do not agree with the budget that was put through. I do not agree with basically letting this president go on a spending spree, which he's going to, in an attempt to further deepen our problems. But Barack Obama is going on a spending spree, make no doubt about it. When he leaves office, the debt of this nation could be north of $20 trillion. It's almost for sure. He doesn't care. Not his problem. And I think he's probably glad he created that problem before he left. For Marco Rubio, good news. Marco Rubio, in my estimation, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz both had the best debate last week. And you've got the hardcore Cruz supporters, and that's not going to go much direction either way. Those that like Ted Cruz, those that strongly dislike Ted Cruz, pretty well have their heels dug in. But Marco Rubio now has quietly been moving his way up the ladder, and now one of the wealthiest, most influential Republican donors in the country, throwing his support to the Florida senator. Now, that's a decision that could swing millions of dollars his way as he continues to battle it out with his former mentor, Jeb Bush. The decision by donor Paul Singer is a signal and a victory for Rubio and his campaign. Singer's a billionaire New York investor. It's a major blow to Jeb Bush. Now, I don't know if the term that much of the mainstream media has been using is fair, but it might just be. They have been using the term death watch, referring to Bush's campaign. Death watch. And that might be true. But in a letter that Mr. Singer sent to dozens of other donors on Friday, picked up by the New York Times, Mr. Singer described Marco Rubio, who was elected to the Senate in the Tea Party, and that Tea Party wave, but has been embraced by the party's Washington elite as the only candidate who can, quote, navigate this complex primary process and still be in a position to defeat Hillary Rodham Clinton in a general election. He praised Mr. Rubio's message of optimism about America's future, his work on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and his ability to make a persuasive case to voters as key reasons to support him. I think those are all astute observations, and, well, let's be honest, Paul Singer's made a lot of astute observations in his life, which is why he is a billionaire. Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want. How do we know the names? We are the people that can find.
All right, welcome back to it. It is Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. The hotline number for common sense. For common sense thoughts is 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. Nolan Finley, the editor of the Detroit News, will be here a little bit later talking about the roads. Todd Corser will be here with his claims of extortion, and he says he's going to be issuing some paperwork today toward the prosecutor in Lapeer County. We'll talk about that. Mike Hughes will be here. Chris Farrell will be here from Judicial Watch. Judicial Watch suing the Obama administration of Health and Human Services for records on Planned Parenthood and its connection there. We'll see what happens. And, of course, Tim Stout will be here to wrap up the weekend in sports. The Dean of Sports will be here. So a big day ahead. But we start with our good friend, the professor of political science. He's been doing it since 1903. Allan Saxe at the University of Texas in Arlington. Welcome back, Professor.
Morning. Why do you have to remind me of 1903? That was a big year.
It was a big year. Teddy Roosevelt was in the White House.
It was a big year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, all right, where to start? Let's see. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with the fact that the mainstream media continues to use the term death watch, either appropriately or not appropriately, for the Jeb Bush campaign. And Jeb Bush's campaign not exactly doing well today. Paul Singer, the billionaire, has thrown his support to Marco Rubio, as you well know, which signals a lot of other investors and donors and supporters to put their money behind Marco Rubio as well. Not good news for Jeb Bush again.
It's really not. It was almost embarrassing in the debate last Wednesday when Jeb Bush asked Marco Rubio a question, essentially saying, "Why don't you resign?" You know, I mean, here's a man who's experienced in politics. He has lots of consultants, and that probably was one of the most ridiculous questions. And Marco Rubio just took that question and just mashed it on the floor in front of him.
I think it's called he disarticulated the argument. He dismembered it. He disemboweled it. And then the worst part about it wasn't the fact that Marco, obviously accepts coaching better than Jeb Bush. But Jeb Bush stood there flat-footed and had no response to the response. I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to have a little back and forth, we'll say, hey, hold on, Marco. I knew you were going to say that. So what about this or that? Or you missed an important vote on something here, or you missed a key. Nothing. Flat-footed. And that right there, it was like I was watching one of those TV medical shows, and all of a sudden the thing goes beep, 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 beep. It just flatlines right there.
But, I don't want to compare him to his brother, the former President George W. Bush. But he wasn't very adept either in one-liners or, in fact, I remember those debates years and years ago, the Republican debates, and George W. Bush wasn't quite as bad as Jeb, but he wasn't that quick either. But yet he had the money, he knew how to handle it. He was it was a different day and age. But then Governor George W. Bush wasn't very quick either. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't. he wasn't a Marco Rubio or a Ted Cruz either.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are. I mean, all right, let's assume that Jeb Bush is that ship is listing and taking water, which it is. And you see that Donald Trump is slipping a bit, and you see that Ben Carson, he might be on top, but I don't think most of us really believe that Ben Carson's going to prevail in the end. I mean, I don't, anyhow. And who does that leave in the
Marco
top
Rubio,
3 or 4? Exactly.
Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina.
Well, Carly's fading pretty strongly right now, too. She had a big flash after the first 2 debates and surged into the top tier. But not now. Carly seems to be back at the single digits, 7-8% support. So Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio still cruising along. And I had said some time ago to you and some others who would listen, I thought that maybe, and I've caused so much grief for this. It's just whatever. But I said that Kasich was probably a reasonable choice from Ohio if you wanted to win the election. Rubio on the undercard. I think I had the ticket right potentially, but I think I had it backwards.
Well, a Rubio-Kasich ticket would not be bad for the very important reason the Republicans need Ohio. And
they need Florida.
Is good on economic issues. There's no question about that. But I would say a Rubio-Kasich ticket would be fine. A Rubio-Carly Fiorina ticket would be fine as well, because Carly Fiorina goes after Hillary right for her jugular vein.
Well, let me ask you this, and you're from Texas, and I don't hold that against you. Just so we're clear on that. I think somebody has to live there, and I get that. But Ted Cruz, your senator, a lot of people believe would make the best president. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think he's got some fine ideas. He was one of the, he was considered the smartest guy coming out of Harvard Law School, right? According to some, his professors there. But I don't know that he has the personality traits that are going to get him to win the White House. So I ask you, does he have any benefit on any ticket here? Because I think he's polarizing more than others. Maybe I'm wrong, but he just seems like more of a polarizing figure.
No, I think you're exactly right. But I think that what is important about him, he is so smart. He is so smart. And I also think that he would eviscerate Hillary Clinton in any debate. But I don't believe that he can beat her in the general election.
See, here's the problem. I believe you're right.
The media will come after him in a strong way.
I believe you're right about Ted Cruz would destroy her in a debate. However, the way that he would do it, it would be framed in such a way that he was rude to Hillary, or he was, disrespectful, or, she was they would frame it as the war on women, blah, blah, blah. So I think Marco has a better tact.
I do too.
In the dodge, parry, spin, repeat, in that sparring match, in that fencing. That is a debate.
Ted Cruz make a great attorney general in a Republican administration.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if he'd take it or not, but there could be nobody finer than a Ted Cruz. He has great legal experience. He was Solicitor General here in Texas.
It would work.
Sort of the chief lawyer of the state. He's argued already maybe 4 or 5 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. I believe won them all. So he'd be a great attorney general, but that's far down the line.
Well, and make no mistake, we're in a day and age here where people don't trust the process. They don't trust the Justice Department, for example. So, an attorney general being of his ilk would be great if he went after Republicans and Democrats and lawbreakers with the same vigor, no matter where their party
he would. Unlike this
lie.
Current administration, he would do exactly that.
And that's key, because in order to establish credibility, you can't just let your own team, get a pass, which is what happened time and time again with what we're looking at today.
He is a very principled man, and he would do exactly that, I believe, if he became Attorney General of the United States.
Well, and there you go. So all right, so that's an interesting conversation. The Ted Cruz would make an interesting Attorney General, and I believe that you are correct. And maybe that's the way it breaks down, because I think in the end here, right now, if I was going to bet money right now, my $1 would be on Marco Rubio. I mean, that's just where I think that it's going to come out right now.
My issue, I keep thinking, is that the Republicans have sort of bloodied themselves up so badly. I hope that they can come together from a Republican standpoint. I hope they can come together in the general election.
No, they can.
And that's important. At least not work against each other. But John Kasich is very necessary for Ohio. And I think they can't make him too mad. You don't want him on the sidelines if they make him too mad. But again, he'd make a good vice presidential candidate, but I also think Carly Fiorina would as well.
All right, hold that thought right there, Professor. Hold that thought. We want to talk about Donald Trump and the Veterans Administration, Paul Ryan taking the speaker's gavel, and so much more with the Professor right after this on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
We'll get back to the Republicans in a moment, but let's look at a couple of other things that have happened. If you missed this, the Black Lives Matter folks interrupted Hillary Clinton at a big rally here a couple of days ago. And I mean, they wouldn't give her a break. They pretty well shot her down, and they just wouldn't give her a break. And it was the folks in Georgia tried to help her out. Congressman John Lewis and Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed just couldn't seem to help her, and those folks they weren't having any part of it. They weren't buying the Hillary thing, and it created problems for her. One of the things that's going to be a big problem for the Democratic campaign, probably, because of all the promises made and now promises broken, it's this Cadillac tax that has been, on the sidelines for the big unions here in Obamacare from the beginning. But the Cadillac tax is coming. See, if you got a big fancy bundle of health care coverage and so forth, you're going to get taxed on that. And the tax is going to be pretty, substantial to say the least. And Obama doesn't care. It's in place. He's gone. Hillary's going to have to deal with the Cadillac tax. And where do we go from here? Back with the professor now, Allan Saxe from the University of Texas, Arlington. Professor, what about this Cadillac tax? It's going to be a headache for the Democrats.
You're right. There's another big headache coming down the path, and the Republicans are partially to blame for it. And that is Social Security, Medicare payments are going up dramatically. And a lot of people have to remember that Medicare was raided very much during the Obamacare issue. So they went into Medicare, took out a lot of money from Medicare, and now Medicare is having to pay for it. So premiums are going up, which means that some people's Social Security payments are going to go down.
Didn't
and that,
they,
I think, is a big issue, and ought to be perhaps a bigger issue yet. And there was no cost of living increase for Social Security recipients. But I believe that Congress has paid themselves very well, again, in some pay raises over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. So both Republicans and Democrats, I think, have to blame. I hope I'm right in saying that they did give themselves, Congress, a cost of living increase over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, both Republicans and Democrats. So security payments, at least this year, have been completely flat. In fact, they're going to go down because of Medicare payments going up.
Yeah, well, didn't they take $800 billion for one of the stimulus packages out of Medicaid?
That's right,
yeah.
out of Medicare.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I think the Democrats have to answer for on Obamacare, and also the Republicans as well. This last budget package that was put together by John Boehner, who is now left as Speaker of the House, as far as Republicans are concerned, it was a bad deal all the way around, worse than I ever thought, and that is part of the deal. And we're going to increase defense spending a little bit and social service spending a lot, and the debt has now been increased to who knows where.
Exactly.
So
there's
spending is going to be rampant, and John Boehner, I understand now why a lot of Republicans wanted him gone.
Yeah, that was a disastrous move. For all of us. It'll take us to $20 trillion in debt, maybe significantly more.
That's
it could
right.
be 21 or 22. Well, I mean, it's a spending spree for Obama, and the sad thing is he just doesn't care.
That's right.
Now, looking at some of the other issues coming up, I think Donald Trump continues to play a very significant role in this presidential race. He made a new pitch over the weekend to veterans, promising them that he'll take on the corrupt and incompetent Department of Veterans Affairs, which is another winning campaign issue, I believe. I believe that the VA problems, and here comes Donald Trump riding in on his white horse to talk about it when most people are not.
And you're exactly right. I think Donald Trump has a very useful purpose. I don't think he's going to get the nomination, but whoever does get the nomination, I think it would be great if Donald Trump would campaign for them, at least in some states. Now, again, I'm being very premature. I think he's fading a little bit. I don't believe I'm getting into his mind a little bit, psychoanalyzing him. I don't think he ever really believed he was going to go this far and be a front runner. I think it was egged on by the media. I remember he would be on Fox television every Monday morning, and they kept asking him, Donald, when are you going to get in? When are you going to get in? Because 4 years ago he threatened to get in and never did.
And 4 years before that, and 4 years before that.
That's right. And so this time they egged him on, and he got in. And then I think, much to his surprise, he soared to the top. But I don't think he's going to get the nomination. It's a lot of fun, and I don't mean that in just a frivolous way. I think he wanted to get in, make some issues, get some attention, and I don't mean that in a mean way. Every politician wants attention. So he's no worse than any of the others, that they all want attention, and he wanted it too. He's a great entertainer, and again, I do not mean that in a nefarious way.
No,
but I don't think that he's going to get the Republican nomination, and I think he knows that. A week ago, he actually made a comment like that. He said, I'm paraphrasing, if he begins to go down in the polls very dramatically, he'll leave.
Well, I guess we'll keep an eye on that.
That's right.
He'll leave with no debt.
That's right.
He'll leave with no deal with NBC and Univision.
And he did have a very useful purpose in this election cycle.
Well, he has. I mean, let's be honest. 24 million people would not have turned out to watch a presidential debate and hear about some of the issues that they're hearing about now. And it's too bad he can't be, if he doesn't make it, it's too bad he can't at least be like a moderator for a debate this coming year.
I have the great idea. The Republicans tried to make some kind of a deal last night in regard to future debates and get away from NBC and maybe some of the others. I would say stay with NBC, stay with all of them.
That's my deal.
With one big proviso, that Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity can also be moderators if and when Hillary Clinton and the Democrats get together in another debate.
Well, I like that idea a lot.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but, let's be honest. The NBC thing, all the Republicans won. The whole field won.
That's right.
Why would you run from that? Reince Priebus is wrong about his approach to that. Anyhow, Professor, greatly appreciate your time as always. Enjoy your time in Texas. There you have it. It's Professor Allan Saxe, Professor of Political Science at the University of Texas in Arlington. If you'd like to find out more, you can go to stevegruber.com. There you can find the writings, my blogs, and so forth. You can find a place to listen live every day. Take us to work. That's the Listen Live button. And find old shows and podcasts and so forth, powered by Podbean. You won't miss it. It's all at stevegruber.com. And Steve Gruber, the Steve Gruber Show on Facebook. Make sure you click like. We'll be right back.